Welcome back to On the Same Page. We are on Daf Ayin Amud Beis 70b of Meseches Kiddushin. We are starting 4 lines from the bottom of the page. Last word on the line, the word Amar. And the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Chelbo. Rabbi Chelbo said, Kashim Geros L'Yisrael Kisapachas. Gerim converts are difficult to born Jews like Sapachas. Sapachas is a type of tzaras, some kind of scab, and Gerim, the Gemara says, converts present a challenge for born Jews like Sapachas. Where does this? We'll explain why in a moment. But where does this come from? Shenemar, as the pasuk says, he quotes a pasuk in Yeshaya, and it says, "V'nilva hager alehem," and the convert will escort you, meaning will join you, v'nisbechu abeis Yisrael, and cleave to the house of abeis Yaakov, and cleave to the house of Yaakov. So it refers to converts, and refers to them as v'nisbechu, that they will cleave. But ksiv hacha v'nisbechu, here it uses that root sapach, and which means something that's attached to you. It says they will cleave, ksiv hasam, and it says over there, when it talks about the different blemishes of tzaras, of spiritual leprosy, it says Vilaseis vilasapachas, which are 2 types of scabs of tzaras, and one of them is called sapachas. So we see, and it refers to converts as vinispechu, like sapachas, they'll be like scabs. So is this a positive thing about converts? Is this a negative thing? So there are different explanations, in many different explanations for this. One explanation, Rashi says over here, is that converts present a difficulty because they are not as familiar with the mitzvos, and they therefore can't be as careful, and that can influence those around them negatively. That's what Rashi says over here. Another way perhaps that it could be negative is because other Jews are responsible for them. Kol Yisrael Revim Zalazeh. Everybody's responsible for each other. And if somebody doesn't know how to follow Jewish law properly, halacha properly, it's new to them, it's unfamiliar. So then that affects everybody else because it's their responsibility. That's maybe a little bit of a more negative light. Some understand that it's because there's a obligation on every born Jew. You have to love the convert and treat them with extra kindness, and the Torah repeats this numerous times, and that could be a difficult mitzvah. Easier not to have to, that sometimes it's hard to fulfill, and so it creates the existence of a convert creates a challenge for somebody who's born as a Jew, because now they have an obligation that it's an opportunity, but it's an obligation that can sometimes be difficult to fulfill. On the other hand, others learn that the reason why converts are like a scab to born Jews is because actually converts are more particular and more careful about the mitzvahs. They've chosen this life, and they're passionate, they're excited about it, and so they almost make other people look bad because they are so excited and so careful and so passionate, and so that's how some learn. There's many other explanations even, but that's just some of it. But that's a famous statement of the Gemara that converts are like scabs for the Jewish people, for those who are born Jewish. Again, it could be a positive thing about converts. It could be a less positive thing. Okay, the Gemara continues. It says, Amar Rabbi Chama bar Chanina. Rabbi Chama bar Chanina says, Kisha Kadosh Baruch Hu mitaher, top of the next page, mitaher shvatim, when God will eventually purify the lineage of the different tribes, and so apparently it's already telling us something that there's going to come a time where based on, I guess, prophecy, God will inform us of those who have pure lineage, and those whose lineage has become blemished by forbidden relationships. So it says, Shifto Shalevi Mitar Tefillah. The Shevet, the tribe of Levi, will be purified first. Where does this come from? It comes from a pasuk in the book of Malachi, it says, V'yashav, and he will sit, mitzaref, and refine, umetaher kasef, and purify silver, b'tiras b'nei Levi, and he will purify the children of Levi, v'zikek osam, and again, like purify or shine them, kazav, like gold, v'kakesef, like silver, v'yu la'Hashem, magishe mincha b'tzedakah, and they will be unto God those who bring mincha offerings righteously. But it mentions specifically that he will purify the house of Levi. Again, Kohanim also come from the house of Levi, and they will go first in having their lineage clarified and purified, and identified of who's of kosher lineage and who is not. That's one opinion. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, Kesef mitaher mamzerim. Silver will purify mamzers. What does that mean? So he says, Shneamar, he quotes the pasuk, the same pasuk, so he has a different interpretation of the same verse. It says, V'yashav mitzaref umitaher kasef. He'll sit and refine and purify the silver ones. So what is this talking about? So Rashi explains that sometimes, right, how does it come about that somebody of improper lineage, like a mamzer, marries in a forbidden relationship, a mamzer or mamzeres? So sometimes it's because they have money, and people are taken by that and tempted, and they will marry people who they cannot marry because of their money, and what this is telling us is that actually those who came through silver, meaning those who only married him because of their money, meaning those of improper lineage, God will purify them, and they won't be separated out. What Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi's position is that actually all those of improper lineage, so in the end of days, God will say, okay, you did wrong, but now you're going to be purified, and I guess those of disqualified lineage will revert back to being of pure lineage, and it quotes the pasuk. It says, he'll sit and he'll refine and purify the silver, those who were able to assimilate and mix in because of their money. And then it says, back in the Gemara, it says, "Mai magishe mincha b'tzedakah." What does it mean? They bring a mincha. Those who bring a mincha offering to Hashem b'tzedakah and righteousness. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak says, "Tzedakah asa Kadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael." It's a tzedakah. It's a charity that God does for Israel. Shem mishpacha shenitma. That a family that's become assimilated is assimilated in and allowed to remain that way. And so Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi holds that when the pasuk refers to purifying, at the end of days that God will purify them, it's not like the first opinion that God will purify by identifying those who are pure and those who are impure, but God will purify by making just everybody pure at the end. And that's a tzedakah, that's a righteous charity that God will do for those who became mixed in and assimilated. Okay, the Gemara continues at the two dots, says Gufa. Gufa means it's quoting something that we quoted earlier and going to examine that which was brought in previously. So previously we said, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, Kol haratzos isa le'eretz Yisrael, ve'eretz Yisrael isa leBavel. Shmuel said that all lands are like an isa, like a dough mixture compared to Eretz Yisrael, and Eretz Yisrael is like a dough mixture compared to Bavel. In other words, the question is how pure are the lineage of the people of these places. So Bavel has the purest. Bavel is like we said, Ezra took all those of impure lineage up to Eretz Yisrael with him. So Babylonia had the purest lineage. And then Eretz Yisrael, at least there was a rabbinic authority that was overseeing to the best of their abilities the marriages and ensuring that people, as much as they could, that people were marrying the people they were allowed to marry. And then there's the other lands, Chutz La'aretz, the other lands where there was no established rabbinic authority. So there it was just a free-for-all. So those are the most mixed. Compared to Eretz Yisrael, somebody living in Israel would be very, very careful whether they would marry somebody from outside of Israel other than Bavel, because the lineage there is all mixed up. And somebody in Bavel, Babylonia, would be careful about marrying someone living in Eretz Yisrael, because compared to Bavel, the lineage of Eretz Yisrael is very mixed up. Okay, the Gemara says, so that was really based on what happened at the beginning of the Second Temple period, when Ezra brought the people up. But subsequently, throughout the Second Temple period and going into the time of the Mishnah and the Gemara, so what, post Second Temple, what happened then in terms of the lineage? So the Gemara says, Bimei Rebbe, in the days of Rebbe, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Bikshu Lasos Bavel Isa L'Eretz Yisrael. There were those who wanted to declare that it's now changed. And Bavel, Babylonia, is like an Isa, is like a mixture compared to Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, now has pure lineage. In the times of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, again, this is like, I think, maybe 150 or so in the Common Era, maybe a bit later, 200. So they wanted to declare that Eretz Yisrael had pure lineage. So Amar Lahen, so Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said to them, Kotzim atem mesimim li bein einai. You're putting thorns in my eyes, or between my eyes. So he was not so excited about this idea. Why? Because Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was from a family in Bavel, descending from Hillel Hazaken, Hillel the elder, and so he's like, you want to do that? That's putting thorns in my eyes, because you're saying now that people of Eretz Yisrael are of pure lineage than people of Bavel. He said, Yitapel imachem Rabbi Chanina bar Chama. I'm gonna get Rabbi Chanina bar Chama to join to answer you, to explain. So Nitval imam Rabbi Chanina bar Chama. So he came and Amar lahem, and he said to them, Kach mikublani mi Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi. This is what I've received, the tradition I've received from Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yossi. She'amar mishum aviv, who said in the name of his father, Rabbi Yossi, Kol haratzos Yisrael Eretz Yisrael. All the lands are considered a mixture compared to Israel. Eretz Yisrael, Yisrael, Bavel. And Eretz Yisrael is a mixture compared to Bavel. And what he was saying was that that's still how it remains, that the lineage of Bavel is considered pure compared to that of Eretz Yisrael. And again, the practical difference would be who looks into who, basically. When if you want to make a marriage between someone from Babylonia and someone from Israel, so the one that's more of the mixture would have to be investigated more carefully. So in a certain way, the other side would have the advantage. So in Bavel, if Eretz Yisrael was a mixture compared to Bavel, so people from Bavel would be very careful before marrying someone from Israel and looking into them. But if they would declare that it was the opposite, so then people from Eretz Yisrael would be careful before marrying someone from Bavel. And they said, no, it remains the same. Eretz Yisrael is more of a mixture than Bavel. Bimei Rabbi Pinchas, Bikshu Lasos Bavel Yisrael Eretz Yisrael. Again, in the days of Rabbi Pinchas, they wanted to do the same thing. They wanted to declare that Bavel was like a mixture compared to Eretz Yisrael. Amar lahem u'la'avadav, he said to his servants, Shani omer shnei devarim b'beis hamedrash, toluni ba'arisa v'rutzu. I'm going to say two things in the Beis Medrash in the study hall. When I do, take me in a bed, in a carriage, and run me out of there. So he's saying, I'm going to make a statement. People are not going to be happy. It's after I make it, get me out of there. So Amar Lahem, Ki Ayil, when he went up, he was in the Beis Medrash, Rabbi Pinchas. Amar Lahem, and he said an announcement in the Beis Medrash. First he said, Ein shchita la'of min haTorah. He said, that which we shech, that we slaughter birds, it's not from the Torah, it's not D'oraisa, it's rabbinic, he said. And it's learned from a pasuk, but it was kind of like a shock, and they wouldn't know exactly where he was coming from, and it would get them distracted from what he was about to say next. So that was his initial statement, that Torah law does not require shchita, slaughtering for eating a bird, for eating chicken. that is rabbinic, he said. I'm not sure if we paskin that way, if we actually rule that way, but that is an opinion. Adiyasvi become but while they were sitting and looking into this, where did he get this from? Where's the source for that? Amar lahu, he then said to them, Ka'aratzos Yisrael Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael Yisrael Babel. He said, all the lands are like a mixture compared to Eretz Yisrael, and Eretz Yisrael is like a mixture compared to Babel, exactly like we've been saying, and not like they wanted to say. All the other, I guess, the other rabbis and there were calls to switching, and he said, no, it remains this way. Natlu barisa v'ratzu. So then as instructing his servants, took him in the bed, the carriage, and they ran him out of there. Ratzu acharav. Now the people in the base medrash ran after him, v'lo higiu, but they couldn't reach him. So now they realized that the families of Eretz Yisrael need to be investigated more carefully for their lineage, because that he said is an isa, it's a mixture. So Yashvu Badku, they sat and they investigated the lineage of various families ad shehigiu l'sakana, until they reached a point of danger where there were some powerful families that they realized were not of good lineage, upirshu, so then they gave it up because it was too dangerous to continue in this kind of research. Okay? On a similar thing, it said, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said, it's a similar kind of idea. He said, Heichala. This is a kind of vow, like by the Heichal. The Heichal was the main room of the Beis HaMikdash. So by the sanctuary, he said, V'yodenu he said, it's really in our hands to reveal the psul, the problematic lineage of people in Eretz Yisrael. Aval ma'aseh, but he said, but what can I do? Shari gedolei hadar nitmu ba, because there are great people of the generation who are assimilated in, who there's people of problematic lineage married into their families. So he said, I don't know if he meant the gedolei hadar like we use the term, like the leaders, the most righteous, the greatest sages, or he meant the presidents and the more powerful, politically powerful people. But it was, or maybe it's the same people. But Rabbi Yochanan said, we can't. It's too dangerous, I guess. The same idea to start revealing and reporting everybody who's of a problematic lineage. Now, but isn't it important to reveal it? So the Gemara says, Savar like Rabbi Yitzchak. He held like Rabbi Yitzchak the Amar, Rabbi Yitzchak, that Rabbi Yitzchak said, similar to what we said earlier from Yeshua ben Levi, Mishpacha shenitma. A family that has become assimilated, nitma. It's assimilated in meaning. I think a little bit of a different point. This opinion says it's not our job to go back and figure out who everyone is, their lineage. Again, we have to understand at what point, how mixed in, and how easy it is to investigate. But he seems to be saying that if there's suspected problems in the lineage, we just leave it. We don't go and investigate. That's what Rabbi Yitzchak said. If we know, we know. But if we don't know, so then we won't. We'll just leave it the way it is. Amar Abaye said, "Afana nami tanina." We actually learned this in a Mishnah. The Mishnah says in Edios, it says, Mishpachas b'nei Atzreifa haisa be'ever hayarden. There was a family called Beis Atzreifa. They lived on the other side of the Jordan, Transjordan, which is basically Jordan. V'Rivka ben Sion Bizroa. And Ben Sion, who was a leader at the time, he distanced them forcefully, meaning even though they were really of kosher lineage, he said they're psulim. This guy Ben Sion declared them as pasul. Od acheres haisa, there was a different family, the Kirva Ben Sion Bizroa, and even though they were pasul, they were disqualified, he brought them close, and he said they're not problematic lineage. Now, the Mishnah says, Kigon Elu, people like that, Eliyahu ba l'tamei l'tayr l'rachik l'kar. People like that, Eliyahu Hanavi is going to come, and he's going to clarify for us who's tamei, who's tahor, who's impure, who's pure. L'rachik l'kar, to distance and to bring close. People like that, the Mishnah says. And we infer, says the Gemara, Kigon Elu diyadin. That's because we knew who they were. People who we know, that's who there's going to be a clarification for. People who were known to be pure or impure, and it was deliberately mixed in, deliberately misreported what their lineage is. So that will be clarified when Eliyahu Hanavi comes. But aval mishpacha shnitma, but a family that became assimilated sort of by accident, unbeknownst to the people, nitma, it's assimilating, it's mixed in, and again, by assimilating we mean where there's tameim, or those of psulim, those of problematic lineage who marry into the family. So we're going to leave that as it is. And again, that's because we're talking about in situations where we didn't know that the person was pasul when they married in. And maybe we don't even know afterwards. We don't have to, it's not going to be clarified, they're going to be able to remain. Tana, we learned. Oda cheres haisa. There was another family of problematic lineage. V'lo ratzu chachamim legalosa. But the chacham did not want to reveal who they were. And this is besides, Rashi says, besides for that one that we mentioned that Ben Sion brought to, even though they were psulim, and he said, no, they're fine. There was another one like that, but the Chachamim and the sages did not want to reveal it. I guess it was dangerous, they were powerful. Again, the second temple, post-second temple, there was, a lot of turmoil and different different forces and powers, political. And so there's a lot of politics over here. So the Chachamim didn't want to reveal who this family was that were psulim. Aval Chachamim mosher mosol livnei lo talmidei pam achas b'shavua. But the Chachamim would pass on the knowledge of which family is really a problematic lineage to their children and to their students once every 7 years. Shavua here doesn't mean once a week, it means once every 7 years. Some say it was twice every 7 years. They would give that information over so that it was known, secretly, but it was at least known who this family was that was powerful but was really pasul. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, "Mistaber command Amar pamachas b'shavua." It makes sense to say like the opinion that it was once every 7 years, not twice every 7 years. Kiddushin, because we learn in a brisa the following. The brisa says, Hareini Nazir imlo egala mishpachos. A person says, I'll be a Nazir if I don't reveal the status of specific families. So it says, Yia Nazir v'lo egala mishpachos. So he should not reveal their status, and he should be a Nazir. He should accept the Nazirus. So, meaning in a certain way, it seems like he was forcing himself to reveal it, saying, if I don't reveal it, I'm going to be a Nazir. So we say, okay, be a Nazir rather than reveal it. In other words, we see from this Mishnah that we have to tread very carefully about revealing the halachic status of given families. And so, based on this, the Gemara assumes that if the rabbis were going to pass on the knowledge, they probably did it less than more. Once every 7 years rather than twice every 7 years. Okay, now the Gemara shifts from discussing the knowledge of the status of families that was passed on secretly to the knowledge of things regarding God's name. So it says, Amar Rabba bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Shem ben Arba Osios, the four-letter name of God, the name Yud-Ke Vav-Ke, how to read it, how to write it, what it means. So, Chachamim Moshe Nosol Talmidei Pamachas B'Shavua. the Chachamim give it over to their students once every 7 years. And some say twice every 7 years. Again, this is something that's apparently, we're talking about levels of understanding of the name of God that are to be kept secret. Only those on a high enough level should know them. So it was passed on to the students once every 7 years or twice every 7 years. And Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, Mistavra command Amar pamachas b'shavua. It makes sense to say like the opinion that it was only once every 7 years. And that's something that's supposed to be kept quiet. Dichsiv, because the pasuk says, this is in Parshas Shemos, when God appears to Moshe by the burning bush, and there's a whole conversation, what name should I tell you, and what's your name? So the pasuk there says that it has a line, Zeh Shemi le'olam. Basically, he says, you're going to tell the people, Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzchak, etc., appeared to you, sent me to you. This is Zeh Shemi le'olam. This is my name forever. And the Gemara says, Le'aleim ksiv. The word le'olam, which means forever, is written without a vav, and it can be read le'aleim. Now, le'aleim means to hide. V'salam tamehem. The shorish means hidden, which really, the commentaries explains why the world, olam, comes from that root, because God hides himself in the world. But it's written in a way that it's meant to be, could be read also, le'olam, to hide. This is my name, to hide, meaning this is not something that we're going to go around teaching about in detail. It's to remain hidden, and so it makes sense that the rabbis will only reveal the details, the secrets of it, once every 7 years. Rava Savar L'Midrashei B'Pirka. Rava intended to teach about it at a public shir, a public class, public lecture. Amar Lehu Saba, but a certain elder said to him, Le'alam ksiv, or le'aleim, it says to keep it hidden. You shouldn't be talking about it in public. Rabbi Yavina Rami. While we're on the subject of this verse that talks about God's name, Rabbi Yavina asked a contradiction. Ksiv zeh shemi. First it says, this is my name. Uksiv zeh zichri. Then it says, this is my remembrance. So, is it talking about God's name or talking about something that's just like a reference to God's name? The way actually that Rashi says it is, it doesn't say Zeh Shemi v'zichri, this is my name and remembrance, as if it's talking about one thing. It says Zeh Shemi le'olam, v'zeh zichri l'dar dar. This is my name forever, and this is my remembrance for every generation. It sounds like two different things. So what's Shemi and what's zichri? What's my name and what's my remembrance? So Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying, Lo k'shani nechtav ani nikra. I'm not read the way that I'm written. Nechtav ani biyod and hey, v'nikra ba'alef daled. I'm written with the yud and hey, meaning this is talking about the four-letter name of God, yud and hey and vav and hey, yud ke vav ke, the shem havaya, which we do not read the way that it's written. It's read alef daled, as in adonus, ado and then noi, my master. In other words, this is the source for reading Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, not as it's written, but rather as Ado and then Noi, my master. Because God says, Zeh Shemi le'olam, this is my name forever. This is my remembrance. This is how I'm going to be mentioned. There's a different way that I'm read, at least nowadays. The Gemara says elsewhere that at the end of days we'll then say it the way it's read, but in the Beis HaMikdash they would. But in general, this is how we say it. We say it with the shem Adonus, the shem Ado, and the Noi, and this is the source for it. Tamar Rabban and the rabbis taught. Barishona shem ben shtei mesrei osios hayu moser no solachol adam. So there's a certain name of God that is 12 letters long, and at first they would teach it to everybody. But when the pritzim, those who were too open and misused the use of God's name, when they became active, they would only teach this name to the more discreet Kohanim. And v'atznuim shebakahuna mavliim oso b'neimas achayim hakohanim. And they would sort of swallow it into, absorb it into the singing, the voices of their brothers, the Kohanim, who didn't know the name. In other words, when they would do birchas Kohanim, when they would bless the people, in the Beis Hamikdash, I think, so there were certain Kohanim that knew the special name. It seems that this special name, the 12-letter name, is to be used during birchas Kohanim, when the Kohanim bless, and but only some people knew it. And in order not to teach it to everybody else, they would use it, but they would use it and say quickly while everybody was saying the regular name of God during the birchas Kohanim. And the Gemara continues, it says, Tanya, we're learning a Brisa, Amar Rabbi Tarfon said, Pamachas alisi acher achai imi l'duchen. One time I followed after my mother's brothers to the duchen, to the stage where they would bless the people. So it sounds like Rabbi Tarfon was not a Kohen, but his, actually no, the Rashi says he was a Kohen, and but his mother's brothers apparently were also Kohanim, and they went up to bless the people, and he wanted to hear. He says, I bent my ear, Eitzel Kohen Gadol, by the Kohen Gadol, and Vishamati Shevriya Shem B'Neimas Echad HaKohanim. That he did this, he used that 12-letter name, and he said it, I was listening carefully, he said it while all the other Kohanim were saying the shorter name. Amar Rav Yudah Amar Rav. Rav Yudah says the name of Rav. Shem ben Arba'im Ushtayim Osios. There's a name of God that's 42 letters. And that name, Ein Moser Noso, we do not give that teacher that name, Elo Lemi, except for someone who is Shetzanua, that he is discreet, Ve'anav and humble, Ve'omed B'chatzi Yamav, and he's at least halfway through the lifespan described by David HaMelech of 70, he's at least 35 years old. Ve'eno koes, and it's someone who doesn't get angry. Ve'eno mishtaker, he doesn't get drunk. Ve'eno mamen al midosam, and he's not insistent. He's not. He lets things. He's easygoing. He lets things go. V'chol hayodo ve'azayirbo, and anybody who knows this name and is careful with it. Ve'hamisham rabatar, and guards in purity. Ahov lamala, he is loved on high, v'nechbad lamata, and he's somebody who's desired down here. Ve'masu b'telas ala brios, and people are in awe of such a person. V'nochel shnei olamim, and he inherits two worlds, olam hazeh v'olam haba. He inherits success in this world and in the next world. That's a person who has all these attributes and knows the special name of God and guards it carefully. They merit both success in this world and in the next world. Okay, we will pause here and we'll pick up from Amar Shmuel next time, Be'ezer Hashem.